Hello everyone and welcome to BXB's Bits and Bobs episode 7, The Sky's the Limit! And that will become clear why we've given it that title for this episode, because we're going to talk about No Man's Sky a lot, I would imagine, because all three of us have played it. And I bet, we've not talked about it ahead of time, but I'm guessing we've got lots of opinions about it, and probably differing ones, knowing us three. So that should be an interesting discussion, but that's going to come later on. I think we'll get through everything else actually before we do that, because I suspect that will be the thing that runs the longest. So you guys happy with that? Should I introduce my compatriots for this episode? I am Ben, your host, as always. With me today is our in-house developer, Adam Breeden.
Hello fans, I gather I've picked up a few more since the last time I did one of these, so yes, hi everyone!
Fans! Yeah, that's the word. And ostensibly the reviews editor, though fuck knows when he ever actually does anything, it's Richard Worrell!
I do some stuff, I'm a busy man.
He's a busy man. We're all busy men. It's the 21st century, we just live to be busy. That's how it is. Come on, Richard. Yeah. But you are reviewing things, but you can't actually talk about these things because you're under embargo. So
yeah, that's strange
brilliant. Well, because that's how video games work. Did you not know about how they do that?
Like, well, no, I've not come across that before.
Oh,
I
no.
won't tell you what it is, but I'm reviewing a game that's been out for ages on PC. Not allowed to talk about it. I've finished it. Everyone else has finished it. Can't tell you even what it is. There you go. Next time.
Excitement! You can talk about it in about 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, it's about a week and a half's time you're going to be able to talk about that. So just looking at the dates there. Yeah, video games and all that shit is really weird. And actually, that in a way, that ties into the No Man's Sky stuff, because that had all that bullshit with the embargo stuff. But we can talk about that now if you want, guys, or we can talk about that later. But it's kind of all led into this the hype that built around the release. But yeah, that was pretty stupid, wasn't it? But yeah, let's. What have you guys been up to the last couple of weeks, Adam? Got a new job, but you can't talk about that.
I've got a new job, which means I've worked on a load of interesting stuff that was heavily NDA'd, so I can't really talk about any of it. So mostly what I've done in the last few weeks has been... I'm also playing the closed beta of a game that is similarly NDA'd, can't talk about it. So mostly I was just watching a clock, waiting for 6 o'clock on Friday for No Man's Sky related reasons. And
it didn't work!
Yeah. Played a bit of Pokemon Go. You know, yeah, it didn't boot for the first hour. I was pleased with that.
That was amazing. When I saw your Facebook, I was shitting myself, man. That was so funny. Oh god! After all that anticipation, I could just
Yeah. Yeah, it was lovely. It was lovely.
This adds to the saga of No Man's Sky. Yes, go on, Richard.
I found something really funny about that. I don't know if we can talk about your wife's nan.
Oh yeah, the same night there'd been a sort of domestic accident. My wife's elderly mother had fallen and cut her head quite badly, and they'd taken her to casualty. And I said, "Oh no, it's okay. I'll stay home and I'll sort everything out at home." And I just sat and played No Man's Sky. Well, they sat in casualty for like 4 hours.
Like a good husband.
I'm a good husband. That's
Adam
what.
moaning about his game not working.
Yeah.
His relatives in A&E.
Oh, she was funny.
Do you know what, Richard? It's called priorities, and sometimes you just have to get them right. I mean, that's what's more important. A game we've been waiting for 2 years, or a little fucking cut. We know the answer. We don't even need to get into it. We know the answer.
We all know the answer to that question, but it's just funny to see it in public.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, like me and Richard have actually done some stuff that's overlapped quite a lot, hasn't it? I mean, I forgot to talk about this completely on the last episode, which was the amazing, fantastic Netflix original show Stranger Things. I completely forgot to talk about it, even though I binged it in like a weekend prior to that show, and I just didn't put it on the show notes. I completely forgot about it. But you've watched it as well, Richard.
Yeah, finished it yesterday. Absolutely loved it.
It was fab, wasn't it? Have you seen it, Adam? Adam's muted himself and left. He's back.
I was trying to have a crafty smoke.
Have you seen Stranger Things?
I have seen it mentioned on Twitter more than any TV show ever, so I'm almost certainly going to have to see it at some point.
You should.
The Twitterverse has just adopted it as the greatest thing to ever happen to humanity. So
it's so good.
I guess it must be good.
As a child of the 80s, I think you'll love it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. There's so much nostalgia. It's got like, there's Close Encounters in there, there's E.T. in there, there's X-Files in there, there's a lot of like, Goonies definitely. Lots of just loving stuff. I don't want to talk about it, you don't want to spoil it obviously, but it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it already. And also, an amazing soundtrack that is now available to purchase. I bought it on the day it got released.
Did you?
Absolutely fantastic music in that. Really, really, really good. So I highly recommend checking it out. We've also seen a film, haven't we, Richard? That I feel like our opinions may differ on. Our opinions may differ on a little bit. But, you know, I didn't love it, but you came down on me pretty hard on Facebook when I just said it was pretty okay. It's endorsement, but like Richard's like, "Anyway, shit!" And my mum chimes in with, "Yo, the reviews are really bad." Richard's like, "Yeah, even your mum thinks it's shit." And I'm like, ganging up on me with my mum. It's like being back in high school. I have my little brother again. Like,
that seems reasonable.
Jesus Christ. But it was Suicide Squad, and it's a mess of a film. But there's definitely some bits about it that are enjoyable, at least on a very surface level. I mean, there's pretty good action and quite good characters, but you know, overall it's definitely not very good. But I obviously didn't hate it as much as you, Richard.
Oh, I despised it. I went in thinking I'd be disappointed, and I disliked it more than I could ever have dreamt.
That's hardcore. I mean, did you like it more or less than Batman vs Superman?
Oh, way less. I found stuff to enjoy in Batman vs Superman. I mean, I acknowledged it had its problems, but you know, you can take the good bits out and ignore the rest and still have a good time. With Suicide Squad, I just couldn't. By the time, I think I was probably half an hour in, and I was just waiting for it to end at that point. I'd had enough. You say it was good action. There was pretty much nothing but action, and it was without any real frame of reference. I didn't understand why anything was happening.
I definitely got bored of another gunfight, another fist fight. It got really samey in places. I also think, but I'm as a fan of film, I have to say I found it interesting from the heavy-handed interference that's very apparent from multiple editors and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I mean, like the first act of the film feels like an entirely different film to what the rest of it is, which I think is quite interesting from the idea of the studio interference and all of that sort of stuff. I find that interesting on a meta kind of, on a whole different level. You know, if you ignore the film for what it is, which isn't very good. The whole idea that David Ayer made a film there that's clearly been completely changed by editors after the fact. You know, that it just tonally is all over the place. It's a really strange experience, and it's enjoyable in a way. It
doesn't know what it is. I mean, looking at the trailers, it felt like when DC are naturally darker films than Marvel anyway, aren't they? But Suicide Squad was the one that looked to be, right, this is the really dark one. It's visually dark. It's all about the bad guys. This is going to be some heavy stuff. But no, not even the Return of the Joker had any impact whatsoever. And it just felt so sanitized and anodyne. It was kind of like
interesting. I took it completely differently.
A really soft comic book movie, more than Marvel movies are. It just didn't look like it is.
That's so... It almost sounds like we've seen a different film, Richard. That's really, really interesting. Because to me, it felt like it was so pitch black in tone, especially the second half, that it didn't match its very light-hearted marketing. Because they marketed it to me like it was like Guardians of the Galaxy, a fun, rompy, music-based kind of like teen movie, bit squashbuckly, little bit roguish, that kind of thing. And then there's some bits in the film. There's a bit where a character just executes a bunch of people, and the people that are in there with her, potentially the heroes of the film, basically agree with what's happened and say they've done worse things. It's like there is nobody to root for in this film. They are so pitch black and so utterly devoid of humanity that you don't give a shit what happens to them. Whereas it seems to be the exact opposite with you, Richard. You found them light and fluffy and one note in comparison. Is that fair? It's really interesting.
Less light and fluffy, but just vacuous. There's nothing to them. You can't have heavy characters when they're just paper thin.
But you can have heavy actions, and I think there are definitely. You're right. The characters aren't well fleshed out at all. You know, there's very little there to a lot of them, and there's too many of them. And too many of them are completely pointless for being there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The kid with the sword comes to mind. Like, why was she there? she didn't do anything or add anything, or Killer Croc. Why was he there? He didn't do anything. You could go on.
Boomerang. There's no point in Boomerang. Even Harley Quinn.
Australian.
The whole point of this Suicide Squad was that they had powers to combat the bad versions of Superman that are coming along, because Superman's no longer in the picture. But I don't know. Is being a crazy woman a superpower these days?
She had a bat.
She had a what?
Yep. She had a baseball bat. That was hell of a power there. Bit of a wow. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, the guy they introduced with the powers, kind of, well, yeah, he's been dealt with. So it was kind of like, yeah, there's a dude who shoots things really well, and there's a guy who throws things really well, and there's a girl who hits things really well, and that's kind of, yeah, that's a fair point. But I just think it adds to the whole mishmash between what David Ayer wanted to make as a film, what DC wanted to market as a film, and what DC actually produced as a film. There's three very different visions here, and because of that, you've got a very weird, confused mix at the end of it. But like I said, the behind-the-scenes stuff, I highly recommend checking out the Hollywood Reporter article on it, because once you hear about what was going on behind there, the fact that they gave the final edit controls to the studio that cut the trailer and not the director of the film is kind of insane. So yeah, there's a lot of really curious stuff about it, and the financial pressures and how that's affecting everything. Anyway, but I'm looking forward to seeing what other mess Wonder Woman's going to be next year. So that should be.
God, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Hey, it's World War I, but with a chick in blue and gold, and she's going to save the day from all these people that died. So many people died, but don't worry, because Wonder Woman's here. It'll be fine.
It really just feels like DC have had this panic meeting. How the hell can we catch up on 15 Marvel films? Well, let's just put it in 2.
Yeah, it's so stupid because you can't, and they're desperately trying, aren't they? It's a fucking train wreck watching it, isn't it? It's as like I said, as a fan of film, there is a level that I'm finding it this entertaining. That is, yeah, just sort of it's crazy. Just the behind the scenes of it, I find all that really interesting. But yeah, anyway. So I also saw Star Trek. Anybody else seen Star Trek?
No.
Nope.
I would like to. I heard it wasn't that good though.
Are either of you Trekkies? I think we'll mention it. It's 50 years of Star Trek this year. So.
I wouldn't describe myself as a Trekker. I would say I liked Next Generation. I had a soft spot for DS9. I kind of lost touch with Star Trek after that. Like Voyager just didn't ever grab me, and the newer films seem to be kind of Star Trek, but directed by the guy who wants to direct Star Wars now. Like, it all just seems to be kind of going more towards action and shooty bang explosion stuff, which, I don't know, seems wrong for Star Trek to me. What
about you, Richard? You a Trekkie or a Trekker at all?
Definitely not a Trekkie. Same as Adam, really. I kind of liked...
What a strange thing to say, as if it was like an insult. That's really... I'm definitely not a Trekkie.
Oh, dear.
Well, I don't mean it as a derogatory thing, but people who are Trekkies, they're pretty full on, right? I mean, if you want to call yourself that you're the sort of person who turns your living room into a...
No, not necessarily. I don't think so. Not anymore. I think it's just another label for a geekdom, you know. It'd be no different than calling yourself a gamer or anything like that. Star Wars fan. So, well, we don't call ourselves gamers anymore because it's not, as we will discuss shortly, not necessarily a good thing, is it, Adam? Yeah, is it?
Well, yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to that in a bit. I have to say, I would have definitely, as a kid, I would call myself a Trekkie, though nothing in comparison to my little brother. My little brother, shout out to you, Josh. I know you listen sometimes. He has multiple uniforms, has gone to multiple conventions, and because he lives in America and near Vegas, they have one of the big Star Trek conventions there every year. He has access to that fandom, and it's 50 years of Star Trek, so I think it's definitely worth mentioning. It's an important show. It did a lot of good for science fiction over the years, obviously from when it was created way back in the 60s. I think all of that is quite fascinating, the politics of it, and the social impact it had. I have watched all the shows, so I guess you could call myself a Trekkie in that regard. And I'm a bit of a fan. I do love my science fiction in general. And I saw the new film, and it's probably the best of the 3 modern ones. It's the one that feels the most like Star Trek of old, which is really cool. It definitely goes back to that to that vibe. You know, Abrams didn't direct this one. This was Justin Lin, and everybody went, "Oh my God, Justin Lin, the Fast and Furious guy. What the fuck is he going to do with Star Trek?" Turns out he's a massive Trek fan. So he's actually, you know, he came on board with Simon Pegg and another guy whose name I've forgotten. Only 18 months. It's crazy. This 18 months they came on prior to release date, right? So from nothing to release in a year and a half, and they've made a pretty decent film, which is crazy considering the amount of time they had. But yeah, I think, you know, it's definitely worth checking out. It would be fine to watch on Blu-ray. You know what I mean? It's not like something you need to rush to the cinema to see, but it's definitely better than Suicide Squad. Yeah. So hey, probably going to make a lot less money though, which is a bit of a bummer. But you know, and the I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention is either of you sports types, Olympics.
Yeah, a little
bit Olympics.
I'm an Olympics widow.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing when it's on. I'll like in the evening. I'll watch I'll watch my 4.5 hours of wrestling, and then switch back to normal TV and be like, oh, the Olympics is on. Let's look at real sport for a moment. Yeah, I saw some diving. I saw it on the first night, and then I saw it subsequently where the pool had gone green, yes. Which was like, I would not want to jump into that. There's been a lot of fuck-ups at this Olympics so far. I've seen 2 horrible broken limb videos. You guys seen them?
No.
No? So there's a French athlete going over, I think it was a pommel horse, landed and broke his leg in the most graphical, horrific way. He then gets picked up and stretchered, and they drop him.
Oh!
They drop the fucker with his leg bent at 90 degrees in the shin, and they drop him off the stretcher. It was amazing. Not for him, but like from a yeah, watching this, I was like, that is just, oh snap! See what I did there?
Yeah, it's very good.
Well done. Very subtle, yeah. And then the other one was a weightlifter whose arm gave way when lifting some weights.
There you go. Your arm in the lift. That's horrible.
Yeah.
I always think that's going to happen. I can't watch weightlifting for that reason. It always just looks like his arm's going to break, and then the idea.
And it did.
Yeah.
Oh, but the leg break, the French guy, that was worse because you heard it as well as saw it, and it's the noise it makes. It's just this sickening, sort of dull snap. Oh, horrible shit. That really nasty, but also awesome. You know, we all watched Jackass when we were kids, didn't we? It's basically like that, but with professional athletes, or not professional, amateur athletes. So bummer for them, but very entertaining for us. And then I watched one which was the divers. This is great. They're literally about to run and do their dive, right? And this is this open air swimming pool, right? And it's dark as all fucking Brazil, right, for some reason. So they turn the lights on just as they're doing a run up. And it startles them, and they fuck up the dive like massively. And then they go to the judges. Do we get to do a redo? And they take about 5 minutes discussing it, and then they go, "Nope, that's your score." And it's like, what? Like, that's so fucking harsh, man.
I think, and what really makes it harsh is that at the point when they were told, no, you don't get a redo, they were stood at the end of the diving boards ready to do the redo. Like, they had gone back up the stairs and were stood on the boards ready. Well, they were told, no, come down, no, you fucked up on television in front of everyone.
So fucking, it's just like one cock up after another. They're all gonna get the Zika virus. They're all gonna fucking die. It's like all their kids will die or get mutated in horrible ways. It's just like this Brazilian Olympics shouldn't have happened. Do you know what my theory is? It's because they've clamped down on doping. They should have just let them all dope. Let them all dope like they've always doped. You know, for fuck's sake. Otherwise, the Chinese are just gonna win everything with their selective breeding. So like, you've got to let everybody else dope. It's the only fair thing. Honestly, just let them use their performance enhanced drugs. I want the augmented Olympics, like at a Deus Ex. I want fucking cybernetic.
For sure, Cyborg Olympics is definitely better than real Olympics.
That would happen. I've been watching Robot Wars, and frankly, that would be a better Olympics than what we're getting right now. So, have you guys seen?
I'm left wondering though. You're a sports fan, you say?
Well, the thing that makes me
break their legs. They should all be on drugs.
Well, the only reason I watch sports is for entertainment. Tell me that wouldn't be entertaining. I don't care about the purity of a sport. Fuck that. I just want to. I'm a wrestling fan. I don't need realism. I don't need fucking real sport. That's just nuts. I just want to see shit go crazy. Like that's
Just to point out, I might as well play up to my reputation as the humorless one. The problem with allowing doping freely in sports is the incredible biological damage that you will do to yourself if you take steroids for 10 years of your life.
I am not the doping police. If you want to do that to yourself for my entertainment, that be your choice. You can do what you like. You know, if that's within the rules to destroy yourself for a moment of fame and possible sponsorship money and down the line or something like that, then yeah, do it, man. Do it. They all do it. That's the problem. It's like the Russians have all been called out on this doping, and you got to feel a little bit bad for them. It just means they've been caught, right? There's a lot that still are doping in the US, the UK, the Chinese, you name it, right? They all do it. Don't say they all do it. All countries have athletes that do it, right? It's just they've not been caught. So you've got to feel bad for the Ruskies.
But the Russians have had more caught than anyone else. Like,
well, just because they don't give no fucks.
It appears to be systemic and so widespread that you have to start to assume coaches and official bodies are in on the act.
Well, of course. That's why I feel like they should just come out and say, "Hey, it's called a dope. Everybody's doing it. Let's just embrace it." I mean, it's like, what's the point of fighting this? What's the point? I jest, maybe.
Somewhere there's another athletics in action Reddit that's going mad right now.
Well, we might sort of try and piss off all the parts of the internet. I mean, let's just tick them off. Let's just tick them off. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, before we get into games, I mean, there's not been a lot happening in the pro wrestling right now. But I just want to say, if you're not watching the CWC, for fuck's sake, you need to watch the Cruiserweight Classic. This is some of the best pure wrestling the WWE has ever presented, and the fact that they seem to be implying on Raw that everybody who wants it from the CWC is going to come across to Raw to be in their new Cruiserweight division, and I get the impression the CWC will be like the end point of a year of competition. That's what they're going to do on Raw. That is so exciting to me, just from enjoying this quality of wrestling. It's absolutely fantastic. Are you guys up to date? I actually haven't seen this week's yet. The first of the second round, I haven't seen it yet. But all those round one, oh mate, you've got to catch up. Like there's some the Ciampa and Gargano match at the end of the first round is one of the most amazing bits of wrestling. Those two, I think they're going to win the tag belts at TakeOver coming up because they are fantastic. And he's got such a great finish with so much heart, and it's just like how to build these guys, but also put across an amazing exhibition of singles wrestling. Like absolutely fantastic. The powerbomb that he does into the backstabber at the end of that match will blow your mind, Richard. You have to watch that match. You have to.
I do intend to.
Have you seen it, Adam?
No, I've not seen it. I watched the first two matches of the CWC and stopped because the second match was so bad I assumed it was going to be crap.
So you mean you just watched the first episode and only got two matches in?
Yeah, I got 2 matches in and was like, this is
boring. Mate, no, it's fabulous. There's so much good stuff being shown off, like the different styles and how they mesh in a match. Like they're throwing these technical wrestlers against these high flyers and how they're actually doing the wrestling. Like, they're amazing, just amazing. You guys should totally watch it. Yeah.
I hear it's really good at the moment, so yeah, I probably will catch up.
It's really good.
Have you heard Rude's new entrance music for NXT?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I love it.
It's good.
It's
good.
Well, I just mentioned that Bobby Roode has now come to NXT, and he is going full heel. Like, he hasn't even had a match yet, and yet they have built his character so brilliantly. Oh my God, that entrance music.
A Dragon Force heel anthem, just phenomenal.
Just so, it's special. It is special. I can't wait to see. I hope he kicks that Cien guy's ass, because I find him really irritating. No, that last match he had in the this week's episode was a good one. I just felt like he lost all momentum after his big debut. Because let's be honest, we all prefer Ty, Perfect 10. He should be the one getting the push and not Cien. And the fact that he had to put him over really bummed me out. So yeah. Anyway, anybody
do that a lot. He's always just the guy to put people over, isn't he?
He is. He is. He does deserve it, and I think that they should. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the fact that Hideo's back and they've got Hideo and Nakamura wrestling at the same time. I suspect their programs will literally never meet because it would be very strange to see those guys wrestle each other, considering how similar they are. So I hope they keep them very separate because, well, Nakamura's a million times better, and they're building for the program against Joe. The end of that episode of NXT was hilarious. Holding Joe back while he slapped him repeatedly. I was just that was perfect. I was like, how to piss off Joe, just slapping him. Oh, so good, so good. You've seen NXT, yeah, Rich? I don't want to spoil it too much.
I'm about 3/4 through the.
So I just spoiled the bit you haven't seen. Brilliant, good stuff. That's what I do. I spoil stuff for Rich.
Yeah, it's nice of you to ask after you'd said it, though.
Yeah. Awesome, wicked. That's how I roll. Anything else? Anybody else wants to throw out here that they've been doing the last couple of weeks? I feel like I've mentioned a lot of stuff, but yeah.
Trailer for the next Star Wars looks pretty good. The Rogue One.
So fucking good.
Looks right. That does, doesn't it?
So good.
It does look good. Someone on Twitter said there's one shot in there that bothered them and is now bothering me. The Star Destroyer hovering in orbit, almost just above the ground. That wouldn't happen, would it?
Yeah, they've never said in the expanded universe Star Destroyers could go into atmosphere all the time. That's totally fine within the tech they've established. There's a great thing in one of the Star Wars books where there's like an Imperial interrogation facility deep somewhere in Coruscant, yeah, and it's like, I won't go into the details, but it basically turns out to be a super Star Destroyer that blasts off out of Coruscant, destroying huge amounts of the city, and it just takes off from underground. So yeah, they've got the power to do it, basically in the universe they've established.
All right.
Yes. So super nerd moment there, but
Thank you.
it's fine, Richard. Don't worry.
Fine.
It does look incredible.
Star Wars is allowed more space magic than most sci-fi properties. I think I'm fine with that.
All I could think when watching this trailer is I would have had sex with Han Solo before he was a woman, and now he's a woman. I'm definitely gonna have sex with Han Solo in my dreams. So it was just like, oh my god, so hot. So, so that's yeah, win in so many ways. That looked amazing. It just looks so good. So good. Okay, should we move on to some games?
Yeah.
I want to do something. I want to do something. I feel like we've been a little remiss about in the last sort of 6 episodes and whatever, and that's not giving credit to some of the other team members who aren't on the podcast but are producing fantastic content on the website. So I'm just going to shout out for the last pieces that they've all done. So Pharaonic by Cameron. A video review he did on the website, which was looking at this Egyptian 2D Dark Souls game. It's a really good video, and the game actually looks really cool. Actually, I might check it out myself. But I just want to make sure, go and check out his stuff. Cameron's doing some great work. I know he listens to the show. He actually mentioned to me the other day, you guys didn't talk about your T-shirts on the last episode. I was very upset. Sadly, I don't think any of us are wearing particularly interesting ones this week.
No.
So not worth mentioning. I'm not wearing a wrestling or a gaming tee, which is kind of a bummer. I didn't think about it this week. I'm just not wearing any trousers because it's so hot. But I'm not going to show you that.
It's reasonable.
Yeah.
I am ordering a new T-shirt.
Oh yeah, which one again?
Insert coin. I've got some Resident Evil T-shirts on sale.
Oh.
So look out for that next time.
Okay. So next up on my little shout outs for the guys that are creating stuff on the website. Stephen has done. He's doing a great job. He came on basically when we relaunched the site. I know he's a friend of Richard's in real life.
Yo, Steve.
Yeah, shout out to Stephen. And he just did a review of MX versus ATV Supercross Encore on Xbox One. And I feel bad because it turns out that game was utter shit, according to Stephen's review. I thought it looked pretty good. I honestly did. When I sent that one across to him, I thought, oh, that looks like a fun racing game, dirt bikes and ATVs. That'll be cool. Not so much. So sorry about that, Stephen. I hope the next one I give you. I think he's playing something for me at the moment. I think for us, I can't remember what it is. But I'm sure we'll find out soon when he writes another great review for us. So keep up the good work there, man. It's an awesome review, and I think people should definitely check that one out.
Does that mean Steve has had his racing game to review this year then? Just thinking ahead to Forza Horizon.
I'm not giving you Forza. If that comes in, I'm having it. You can fuck off. Just gonna be honest. You're gonna have to do something special to get that one away from me. So yeah, no, I'm keeping that. Right, the final
Han Solo costume.
You'd have to grow a lot more hair, Richard. You'd have to work on things. Sorry, I don't go for the chrome dome so much, but yeah, just. All right, last but by no means least, Rob has gone from written reviews, of which were excellent, and there's a few of them on the website, to doing these videos, which I find very hard to describe because they are the most creative insanity I have experienced in a while. His recent one, his most recent one was for the Magic Circle Gold Edition, which is a fucking awesome game. That's actually one I've played as well. A game about game design, a game about game making. It's totally fourth wall breaking and bonkers and really interesting. But his review, it starts with what can only be described as a PT-esque horror piece, and then goes into reviewing the game. And it's fabulous, and I can't wait to see. He's got a game coming. His game for review possibly coming up this week. I can't talk about it yet because it's under embargo as well. We seem to have a lot of those at the moment, which are frustrating. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that. I honestly don't know what it will be.
What the game is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the game is. Just watch Rob. It's funny.
It's brilliant. I have no idea what's coming next, and you guys should be watching these reviews and reading the content. It's fabulous. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure we highlighted some stuff on that. I think going forward we'll do a little segment like that on every episode if there's new stuff from not just us, because otherwise it's just about our giant egos and how awesome we are. Well, my giant ego and how awesome I am, anyway. But that could be done. So, I've got an Xbox One S, boys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out a super limited one that I could now sell for about 3 times the price.
Get out. Well, because it's a 2 terabyte one.
2 terabyte white one, which it turns out the news is that they ain't doing no more of those.
No way.
That's what they've said. Microsoft have confirmed it. They're basically going to use it as the limited SKU. So they're going to, like Gears of War, they're going to do probably a Halo one, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But the plain white one, supposedly, in 2 terabytes, will never be released again. Which means I could make some real money out of it. But I don't think I will. I apologize to all the listeners and people watching today. I promised an unboxing, but due to technical issues, I was unable to produce that. Which I was kind of bummed about, actually, on the day. But, you know, there are like 200 million of those, so I'm sure you survive. If you really want to see people take things out of the boxes. It turns out, though, that's a fucking huge subgenre of things on YouTube. People taking things out of boxes. I must just be very old to think that's not entertainment, but okay. Have you guys delved into that? Like, literally people taking their shopping out of bags, people opening action figures, or just anything. That's like, it's a whole thing.
There's a really weird subgenre of it, which I became not obsessed with because I didn't really like watching them, but I became obsessed with why it existed and like trying to work out how there were so many videos of this, and that's the surprise egg videos, which are aimed really at like the 4 and 5 year olds who've been given the iPad and are just silently a grown man or someone, just all you really see is their hands, and they're just unwrapping Kinder Surprise eggs or other kind of knockoff brand surprise eggs, and just unwrapping them, taking the chocolate off, putting it to one side, opening the little pot, showing everything that's inside it, push all that away, get another one, open it, show what's inside it, push it away. That's all it is, and they go for like, you know, there's half-hour-long videos of it with 10 million watches. Like it's a utterly bizarre phenomenon that like took over YouTube for a while. It's very,
and they make serious money because they get huge amounts of product placement money, and they get all kinds of marketing money.
Huge ad revenue.
Yeah, huge ad revenue as well. It's insane. I mean, I've seen, like, talking about your passion, I've seen people opening Magic boosters. Yeah, I know that's a thing. It's just a pack of cards, though. I guess it's for that moment when they hit an ultra rare something or other, a money card that's worth $200.
The Magic booster ones are usually opening boosters that are like 15 years old. You know, boosters from sets that have long since stopped being for sale and therefore have cards potentially in them.
But not just you know, I've seen people. I know there are videos of people who buy a box of, you know, Eldritch Moon and just video.
Oh yeah, no, there's that as well. People do.
So hey, you know, whatever works. People like to watch strange videos because I guess if you're watching this, you're probably quite odd as well. 3 grown men talking about wrestling and video games. Yep. What does that mean about you? Yeah, you're the weird one, not us. I'm gonna project. Just deal with it. But let's talk about the Xbox One S a little bit. Let's get back to that.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
That's what we were talking about. It was a while ago, to be fair, Richard. But okay, I mean, like, what can I say that you don't already know? It's smaller. I think it looks absolutely, really, really lovely. It's got the 2 terabyte hard drive in there. I really like the new controller. Some people have said it feels a bit cheaper. And I can see where they're coming from because they've gone. You know how at the top of the Xbox One S controller there's that sort of separate bit of plastic, or on the Elite I think it's metal. You know, with where the guide button is situated. In the new controller, it's all just one piece of plastic, and it kind of just molds.
Like the old 360 controller.
Yeah, there's still like a dip, but there's not a definite sort of delineation of two pieces. And you know, it's a bit lighter. But one thing I did notice is the rumble in it. It's more subtle and precise. It feels like it's got a slightly better build quality to the components. The sticks feel nicer than the standard controller. The buttons feel good. I thought I was going to immediately just be like, oh, I've already got a Lunar White controller. I'll just get rid of this one. You know, I've got the Elite. I've got a Lunar White. I don't need this one. But I'm actually hanging on to it. I don't really need 3 controllers, but you know, it feels good. I'm surprised. One thing I was a bit bummed out about is they were talking about the improved grip on the underside. I thought it'd be more like the Elite or the Lunar White. It's not. It's a much more subtle, less defined rubberized grip. It almost feels pointless, to be honest. It doesn't really add anything to it. But in general, you know, it's a good console. It feels a bit snappier, and obviously something I wasn't aware of when I put my pre-order in. But you know, there's been a massive teardown of the specs and stuff by Eurogamer and Digital Foundry, and it turns out, you know, I'm going to get a performance boost out of this, between sort of 7 and 10 frames. About a 10% increase on some games and stuff like that. It depends very much game to game. But they've overclocked the processor or the GPU or something, and it's improved performance in some titles, which is nice.
That was one of my two questions. Have you actually noticed anything?
Oh, don't be stupid. No. I'm not. You know, we'll be playing a game we will talk about later, actually, which I think we forgot we'd been playing, Richard, which was Rainbow Six. And we played it with Mark from Brett Xbox days, and he's talking about how much he notices the frame rate difference when it's 30 in Terrorist Hunt and 60 in multiplayer. I barely notice at all. Like I'm like, sure, okay, maybe it's a bit smoother or like whatever. It really, I mean, when we're talking about like single-digit frame differences, no, I'm not. I don't notice that. I'm not noticing that. But it's nice to know it's there, I suppose. It's nice to know the games will run a bit better. You know, it's nice that I'm going to be able to get 4K video streaming out of this now. For when I get a 4K TV, probably in the next year or so, the box will be able to just work straight away with that, and you know, give me that experience in Netflix and Blu-rays and stuff. You know, and like I said, I think the design is fantastic. I really like the form and how it sits now vertically next to my PS4 vertically as well. It takes up less space. Yeah, I mean, I always thought the Xbox One was quiet anyway, especially compared to the PS4. It's pretty much silent.
It was, because it was almost over-engineered to the point of just being silent, because there's so much box there. So I was worried that maybe they've shaved a bit back.
Well, some reviews have said it's a little bit louder, but I'm not noticing much of a difference, to be honest. Obviously, the power brick is now internal as well, or there's no external one, I should say. Yeah, it's just I can look at it. I'm looking at it right now in my car. Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely. I really like it. You'll almost certainly like your Gears of War one. It's a very nice piece of kit. And that hard drive is nice. It took me about 4 days of downloading, but I pretty much filled it up now. So, yeah. It's good stuff.
Wait for that.
Yes. So, I mean, like, what else can you say about hardware? Especially when it's just a mostly cosmetic improvement. If you haven't already got an Xbox One, now would be a really good time to pick it up. It's definitely a nice piece of kit now. And I noticed last month they actually outsold PlayStations for the first time in like a year. So yeah, good for them. Good for them. We aren't single format anymore, though. I have to remind myself that sometimes, that we don't just fanboy on Xbox, and we have to be a little bit more fair, a little bit more balanced. I still personally prefer the interface on the Xbox One over the PlayStation, but you know, I seem to be in the minority for that. Hey.
No, I do too, but you know, that goes back to why we were a part of Brit Xbox in the first place, I guess, because we did prefer it.
I suppose so, and one of the reasons we lost a lot of staff back then, if you remember, when the new consoles came out, because a lot of people jumped
over to PlayStation.
Yeah, and they were like, well, we can't write for you anymore. All right, bye then. See you then, fuck you.
The tribes, the power of the tribes.
Well, no, the problem was we were a single format website, and we dug that hole for ourselves, you know. But when Brit Xbox was created like 15 years ago, it was a very different, you know, landscape to console gaming back then. And you kind of had to have all that weird, pointless fucking loyalty and all that shit. It was so stupid, just ridiculous. But when I guess when I was like 18 or 19 when I first came onto the site, you know, we were all very different people. So we've all grown up a bit, but only a bit. For example, I didn't like wrestling back then, so something weird's happened. I don't know what that's about. But there you go. Shall we? Let's talk about some games. Okay, Richard. Richard's finally got Rocket League.
Yeah, I buckled. I think I saw someone else was playing it, and their achievements popped up in my feed. I thought, I could.
Oh,
have
so that shit worked. Wow.
Yeah.
The actual community tab on Xbox worked. Oh, somebody's got an achievement. I want that achievement. I'll buy a whole game for it.
Yeah. It just turned out I had 15 quid credit lying around. I thought, all right, I don't know. I'm not saving it for anything. Let's get Rocket League. And
Yes.
Really good fun. Really enjoyed my hour or
amazing.
so on it this morning. Now that's all I've played so far, but it's a really good game.
We're going to make a play date, Rich. We're going to make a play date and we're going to play some fucking Rocket League. I love that game so much.
Hopefully with Adam as well. I mean, I do already have it on PS4 and I haven't played it, but I figured.
Oh, because you got the PS when it was free. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do some research into whether we could all play together, and in fact we cannot, because although the platforms are the servers are cross-platform in that Xbox and console and PC gamers can play against each other, there is no capacity for us to form a group or team or anything that would actually put us into the same game, except sheer random chance.
Oh,
Sucks.
what's the point? Oh, that
annoying.
sucks.
Yeah.
It is annoying.
Yeah, and when you were playing on Xbox, you always know when you get put up against PC players because they're the ones without gamer picks.
Yeah.
So it's like you immediately know that you're playing it. Might be at a disadvantage, which is quite odd, but kind of cool at the same time that you know who you're up against, I guess.
Ironically, the same thing is true on PC. I know if I'm against console players because they don't have game picks. Because we have our Steam.
Easy wins!
We have our Steam thing. No, usually it means fucking griefing little twat kids is what it means. It means disable the voice chat immediately.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I
yeah.
see. Oh, I see. Mr. Master Race.
Doesn't mean that.
Fuck you.
I can't throw down any Master Race shit. I've seen how No Man's Sky runs on PS4 compared to how it runs on my PC. There is
I was literally about to say that.
Version.
Yeah, I think it's clear what their primary development platform was, isn't it? Yeah. But we'll come to that soon. I promise. Keep teasing this. I'm gonna make you listen to the end of the show to hear about No Man's Sky. But yeah, I'm really excited that you got Rocket League, Richard. I can't wait to play. I also see you finally played some Transistor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Owning it.
Oh, well, how long's that been out? Is it 2 years now?
A long time.
Long time, isn't it? And I played it for maybe, I don't know, an hour when it first came out and didn't really get it because it's got this turn-based combat system that isn't turn-based if you don't want it to be. And I'm getting into it. It clicked with me what all the systems mean, because it obfuscates all of its systems behind these sort of encoded names. So every upgrade is called like a, I don't know, they're all laid out like CPU components, aren't they? All programs in a system.
Yeah.
And I never really understood how they link together, how you select them, and how you use them. But like Bastion from the same guys from Supergiant, it's fairly simple underneath, where you've just got different weapon systems that interlock to create different effects. So you might have like a laser effect and then an explosion effect, which makes an exploding laser. You get the idea. And really like the setting, the story, the characters, the music. Just like Bastion, really. It's a really well-produced, lovely experience. So I don't think I'm too far through it still. I should put another couple of hours into it, but yeah, I'm very keen to finish it off.
I'm the way I am with Supergiant Games is I am permanently excited for anything they're producing. Bastion blew me away, unlike many games did on the 360. It's one of those few. I can put it on one hand the amount of times I've done this, which was I beat the game and then immediately restarted it and played it through again. I loved it so much. I sent the developers a personal little email and just talked about how much it meant to me and how great the game was. And got a personal reply from the lead developer, and he told me how he showed it to all the team. And it was like, this is like when I guess back then they were very small. They were still fairly underground. I imagine that wouldn't probably happen now. But that's how much that gaming experience meant to me. And I don't normally reach out to a developer, for a game I'm not reviewing, and just be like, hey, thank you so much for making this, because it was reminiscent of sort of gaming in my youth, like a perfectly polished SNES game almost. Like it very much reminded me of that era of platforming. And so when Transistor came around, I was very, very excited for that. And devoured that basically day one, day two, and just beat that game. So it's difficult when you remember it all now because it was, like you said, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I just remember it didn't click with me quite as strongly as Bastion did.
No, I don't think it's as good as Bastion.
But I also found
kind of layers a bit too much on top of its systems, doesn't it?
But I think I respect that it's ambitious.
It's not so accessible as Bastion.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But at the same time, what they're trying to do is much more ambitious, and they're really kind of going for these crazy systems and layering on these things and stuff. And maybe they went a bit too far. Maybe they, like you said, obfuscated things a little bit too much. But it's got a great story, an amazing soundtrack once again, and really good voice acting throughout. And now I'm really excited about their new game, Pyre. Which is this kind of like, well, we don't know exactly what it is yet, but they're showing it at the PAXs and stuff like that, and it seems to be this mixture of like sort of post-apocalyptic road movie with a crazy future sport. So I don't know what that's going to be, but I look forward to checking it out when it comes onto PlayStation. That's for sure. So that's the only downside about Supergiant stuff actually. Now they're tied in really strongly with Sony. So they're not getting, you're not getting those games on all the platforms, which, much like Inside on Xbox One, though it turns out that's now about to come out on PS4 as well. I just think, console-specific stuff is just dumb in this day and age. It's just really backwards and stupid, and we should be putting all these indie games on all the platforms to get it out to as many people as possible. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting gamers to play your game. So it kind of sucks when they don't do that.
Down to money, I guess. I mean, there's some developers that would say that they're not in any exclusivity deal, but nevertheless, they do produce exclusive games. Jonathan Blow's last game is PS4 exclusive. That's not by design or by any sort of legal agreement, as I understand it. He just only had enough money to make a game for one console, and that's how it goes sometimes with indie, isn't it? You've got to choose your battles.
I suppose when you're looking at, now it's a case of penetration, isn't it? I mean, the PlayStation has a wider market share, so you're going to want to put it on that platform because you're going to make the most money back from it, especially if it's an easy-ish situation. For example, getting it across Vita and PS4. I mean, that means you're going to get even a few more people playing it and buying it. So, yeah, I understand it from a business perspective. I still think it's a shame, though. Anything you wanted to add to that one, Adam? Because, being a developer.
I think the Jonathan Blow thing is interesting because Jonathan Blow is also a kind of slightly quirky and fairly spiky character. I actually like him a great deal, but controversy is going to follow that man throughout his entire life. Like, I follow him on Twitter and I see he's not a man who's afraid of expressing his opinions in some fairly robust terms. And so who knows what the reasoning was for his decision. I mean, I know he is still quite bitter with Microsoft for forcing him to add achievements to Braid. So, yeah, why The Witness was only on PS4, we can speculate, but who knows? But certainly, I mean, I think, in a lot of cases, the money you make when a platform holder pays you to go exclusive massively outranks the money you'd make if you were cross-platform. Like, I imagine that's what happened with No Man's Sky, for instance.
No, fair enough. I mean, that makes sense. Anyway, let's not get too down in the dumps about these things. Bottom line is, if you want to play something bad enough, you can probably buy something that enables that. So, hey, get a PS4, Adam. Get a Xbox One, Adam. Just saying.
Well, I'm working again now, so maybe money will come in that I can afford to fritter away on nonsense.
Then we can play Rocket League together.
That would be good. That would be good.
That'd be really good. Right, I'm gonna actually, Adam, why don't you talk about one of your games? I'm not gonna force you to talk about Tumblestone if you don't want to.
Tumblestone's easier to talk about because I've written the review for it, but by the same token, there's a review out there, so if you want to know what I think of it, you can always just kind of read that. I've also been playing Polybridge.
Yeah, fuck you, viewers.
And listeners, go to the website, BXBgames.co.uk. Read the shit on it. Gross.
And also, Tumblestone is a tiny-ass game that no one gives a fuck about, whereas Polybridge is a huge indie smash hit that everyone already knows about. So possibly there's more likely to be listeners who care about my opinions of Polybridge. Polybridge is really nice. It's you may remember from back in the old days, there was years and years ago, there was a game called Bridge Builder on PC. It was literally a shareware game. I mean, it was back when that was a business model that existed. And this became a sequel called Pontifex. And the premise was that you had a certain budget, and you had a train that had to get from one side of a gap to another, and you had to build a bridge across the gap. And there was a physics engine that would model the stresses and strains on your bridge. So you had to learn how to build a coherent physical structure that would not fall apart when additional weight was placed on it in the form of this train going across it. And it was a cool game. And there's been attempts to kind of redo that as an indie game since. Polybridge is by far the best. Polybridge is pretty much exactly what I've just described, except with all kinds of other weird and wonderful challenges in there. Sometimes, instead of building a bridge, you just build a ramp, and the vehicles like jump the gap, and you just have to try and get them to the end without them falling in the river. Sometimes you have multiple vehicles, and you've got to build these ridiculous pneumatically mechanical structures that can reform themselves mid-game, so that, like, you know, this car can get up to the top, and then it all shifts, and then this car can get down to the bottom. And it's that's really, like, that's all the gameplay you can describe. I mean, the joy of it is in just the sort of playing around with it and trying to build different structures and starting to get the hang of the pneumatics and discovering that you can really do some very odd and interesting stuff. So it's another one of those sort of classical mechanical games. The interesting thing about playing it is that where in most games you have like an adversary that's been created by the designers, in this game your adversary is the laws of physics. And for sure the designers have fiddled the laws of physics fairly heavily to try and help the player out. Like, pneumatics work in situations where they absolutely shouldn't work. Anything where you're trying to move a bridge around angles wise, like if you were just trying to pull it at a non-orthogonal angle, you just pull the bridge apart, but actually it lets you get away with quite a lot of that before you do just tear your constructions to pieces. But the issue is that because what you're dealing with is kind of the cold hard facts of life, it can be an extraordinarily frustrating game. And certainly I can't think of a game recently that I've loaded up so many times and then just looked at the level I've got to play, said fuck you, and closed the game again. Like, that's happened multiple times. It's just quite a harsh master. And also I think some of the puzzle types in it are just fundamentally more difficult than others. So if you get a level that's like build a ramp, you kind of know if you throw enough time at it, you'll get there. You know, you just build your ramp, and then you just tweak angles and trial and error until it works. And each attempt takes like 3 seconds to watch. So they're like really nice, really quick, really light. Then you get one of these ones where you've got to reshuffle the bridge around, and you've got to organise all these cars and sort them into their bays. And those are just always a pain in the arse. And so when you get to one of those, often you're kind of like, oh man, I'm not sure I'm in the mood for this today, and you just shut it down. But weirdly, it's as I stopped binging on it and started just playing it in little half-hour bursts, I started to enjoy my time with it far, far more. It's definitely a game that you're not going to sit in front of for like 3 hours. You're going to load it up, do a couple of levels, and then you've had your fill and you're going to close it down again. And so it just burbles along nicely in the background of your life. Yeah, it's a really, really nice game. It's really charming. It's got this gorgeous kind of acoustic guitar soundtrack that just sets the tone for just sitting and chilling and fiddling around with your bridges. And often failure is very amusing, you know, like when you set your pneumatics wrong and instead of the flap coming down to let the cars out, the whole bridge just splits at the middle and everything gets dumped in the sea down this sort of funnel you've created. Like, that's just funny. Like, you do just laugh. When that happens for the 20th time and you still can't figure out why, and you've been working on it for an hour, you don't laugh so much. But it's a great game. I can't knock it. There's a million, like, it's also real good stream bait. Like, there's a million videos of it being played on YouTube. It's done all the big names. Markiplier's got a bunch of videos on it. Jacksepticeye's got a bunch of videos. So you can like check out the play experience of it pretty easily that way, and it's a lovely game. It's really nice.
So sometimes when we talk about games on the podcast, and when I'm talking to Adam and Richard and stuff like that, and the review hasn't gone up yet, I get an idea of where they're going to score that game. And when I talked to Adam 2 weeks ago about This Is the Police, I started to get an idea that where it was going to be scored. It was sounding, he was unsure, but it was coming across quite positive, and I was thinking that's going to be a 2 or 3, you know, somewhere in that area. And then Adam submitted his review, and I looked at it, and I read it, it was very well written, really enjoyable review, really good review. And then it came down to a 1 star. What happened next, Adam?
That threw me as well, actually. When I saw that, I thought, he's gone and played that again, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, I played it more.
Tell us what happened, yeah.
This is an interesting thing to mention, because if you look at, like, I am not the only person who has reviewed This Is the Police, and it's a controversial statement, but I'm going to make it. I don't think many of the reviews out there have played it for as long as I had, because they do not mention fundamental mechanics that are introduced in the second act of the game. In fact, they very accurately describe the first act of the game and have clearly not played any further, and often all the screenshots are not from the later half of the game. And it's a game, as we discussed before, it's a game where it puts you in very unpleasant, uncomfortable, emotional and moral positions, and it ramps that up and it ramps that up. And so it got to the point where I had arrested a 17-year-old lad who was being caught stealing cars, and it introduced me to a screen which was a basement wall covered in medieval-style tools like hacksaws and pliers and a fucking like electric shock machine and a car battery and a water butt that represented waterboarding him, and asked me how I wanted to torture him. Further, it recommended that I read his personal file to figure out what method of torture will be most unpleasant for him, and therefore get him to give me the information I need quickest. At that point, I stopped playing the game, because I decided it was just too fucking nasty by this point. I think that's unnecessary.
So, no choice to not do it? Just give your preference to which style of torture suits you?
So this is where it gets interesting. Yes, of course there's a choice not to do it. And if you don't do it, you lose members of your staff because your funding is cut. And that's always the way this game operates. It says, do this awful thing. You don't have to. I mean, if you prefer, I could render your save game unplayable. I mean, you've only spent 20 hours on this so far. Your choice. Not your choice. Not your choice. Bullying by that point, I feel. It just feels like the game is just pummeling you down, going, yeah, eventually I'm going to make you choose to do all these awful things, and then it's like your responsibility. Like, there's a sense in which the game is spending all of its time sort of going, hey, do you want to do this awful thing? I mean, I'm not judging you, so, you know, you can do it if you want. And over time, that just starts to feel like kind of sinister.
It sounds like, anyway, why are you hitting yourself, the game?
It sort of is. It sort of is. And so I wrote a review in which I said all these things, and in particular said, like, this game has some questionable, well, it seems to have questionable politics, and whether this is because it's incompetently written, or whether it's because the people who designed it really did want to make a piece of highly authoritarian propaganda, I don't know, and I don't really care, because this game is fucking horrible to play and has a really nasty feel to it. And then we started to get comments on the site, and we don't normally get comments on the site.
Well, not like that, anyway.
These comments were very critical of the review and suggested that I was a very poor writer and such forth, which, fine, maybe I am, I don't know. But we also discovered that I was being discussed on Kotaku in Action. Now, Kotaku in Action is a subreddit. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I am very aware of it, because...
You are now.
Well, it's the Reddit headquarters of Gamergate, is what it is, and it always has been. There is a note at the top of the subreddit, Kotaku in Action, that says, if you ever post here, you will be auto-banned from the subreddit to discuss rape survivors, the subreddit to discuss politics, the subreddit to discuss feminism. You are banned from those immediately if you post here. Because it is one of the most wretched hives of scum and villainy on the fucking internet.
Yeah, but Adam, don't you want to torture one of the developers for the game they made?
Yes. In my review, I made a joke in which I referenced a statement that the developer released, in which he said, oh, This Is the Police, it's not a political game. It's a game about humans, not politics. And essentially did exactly what the game does, which is he said, yes, our game represents all these awful things, but we're not saying anything about them. We're stepping back from all those. We're just representing them. Which, if you think about it, is like, here's the difference as I see it, right? If you think of something, this is an old example, but I think it's a good one. Michael Burke goes to Ethiopia in the late 80s and shows you footage in your home of Ethiopian children starving to death, and it's horrible and it's upsetting, but he does that with an agenda. He wants a response when he puts that footage on your TV screen. This is the police does not have an agenda, does not want a response. This is the police just shows you awful shit because awful shit. It's like sitting in a pub next to a guy who's on rotten.com and keeps flashing you his mobile phone and keeps going, oh, look at that. That's gross, isn't it? Oh, look what happens when someone gets run over by a fucking truck. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, it is horrible. And if you're showing it me for no reason, then you're just a sociopath. Like, if you're not trying to say anything about this, then you don't get to talk about this. It's just wrong. I just don't see why you do it.
I'm gonna do that bit where I'm not trying to get out of this. No, support your review 100%. I want to play this game.
No, yeah, for sure. I think you should.
I want to play this game. Supposedly it's coming to consoles at some point, and when it does, I'm gonna try and get. I'm not sure the PR company will give me one now, so I'll probably have to buy it. But I'm gonna. I'll be honest. I did send them the review because I always do, and I didn't hear back. But I might never hear back again from those people. But we'll see. Yeah, I think it's interesting, and everything you said makes me want to play it because
I would be genuinely
such a strong reaction. That just makes me want to know for myself.
I mean, there's no question. Like, it did. Like, I hesitate to say it offended me because that comes with a certain. Like, it makes me sound like I'm clutching my pearls.
Don't be such a snowflake, Adam.
But it did. There did come a point where I was like, no, you're past the tipping point now, and I don't think what you're doing is acceptable anymore. Like, I feel like you're treating me as the player very badly for a start. You are holding a significant amount of my time and effort building up this save state. You're now dangling it in front of me as a sort of. Well, not as a carrot, but you're hanging it over a pit of lava and saying, "I'll fucking drop it." Like, you better do what I say, and that becomes kind of abusive towards the player in a way that I thought was really unacceptable. But also, I just thought, when you make a game with this quantity of content about rape, about murder, about race, about sexuality, and then you say, "Oh, but our game's not political." Yeah, it fucking is. Like, you can't avoid the fact that you are making a political game. In the same way that standing by with your arms folded while a bunch of people shout racial abuse in the street, you are in a way participating in the racial abuse by simply turning a blind eye to it and not intervening and not having any statement about it. You're kind of giving it credibility.
and that's why that's one of the things about Gamergate, isn't it? That's why they've decided to target you a little bit about this and stuff.
I'd be more upset if I hadn't found that Kotaku in Action thread, because frankly, anyone who posts Kotaku in Kotaku in Action has such poor judgment. I literally don't care what they think of my review. A couple of
interesting things for the internet. If any of you guys are listening, I can see where traffic comes from. Just so you know, on a website, I know where you're coming from. That's how I found that thread. I found Kotaku in Action. That's how websites work. And also, I thought it was hilarious that on that Kotaku in Action thing, they didn't link us. They kind of, I forget what they used, but they used a backup grab of the website so that if you look at it, we don't get any traffic. Though we still got traffic, so people clearly looked. But at the same time, they're using a very special thing. So they take basically it's like they get a screenshot almost, but they do an archive of the website. So it'll always be there, Adam. Just so you know, in perpetuity. It'll forever be there as a testament to you, disgusting developer of Dead to Rights. How dare you criticise?
That was a
game showing police brutality. How dare you?
They fucking Googled my CV and started questioning, oh, well, you worked on Dead to Rights, which is also a game about police brutality. It's like, yeah, in the same way that Streets of Rage is, yeah? Because literally that is the game we based Dead to Rights on. We were trying to make a 3D remake of Streets of Rage. That was our intention.
We'll move on. I wanted to bring this up for two reasons, because of Gamergate and because of... the fact that your review was different to how it sounded it was going to go. So I think it's worth, if that sort of thing happens, it's always worth reviewing, going back and looking at these things. For any game, because I think it's really interesting that you you played it more than most, it would seem, before you wrote your review.
Well,
It says a lot about critics, that. So.
All I can say is I am the only review I've seen on the internet that mentioned that there's a torture mechanic in the game. And there's clearly a torture mechanic in the game. I put a screenshot in the review. Like, that surely merits some mention.
I think you might be right. Yeah, I think you might be right. Right, I've got some games I want to tick off the list that I've reviewed before we get into No Man's Sky. I reviewed Dex, which I had actually played quite a bit of prior to the last show, but we ended up running quite long, and I didn't have time to talk about it, and the review came up afterwards anyway. Dex is this, well, what I thought was going to be a fairly simple sort of cyberpunk set, 2D side-on sort of action-y RPG. Turns out it was more action than RPG. Turns out it's a very deep RPG, proper cyberpunk set, quite a cool adult setting, lots of interesting mechanics. You know, your typical. That's the thing. I enjoyed my time with it because I like cyberpunk stuff, and I really enjoyed the setting. But when you actually, it's a fairly typical RPG. You know, you've got leveling up and skills and talents and abilities. You've got an inventory. What sets it apart is there's a very fun twin-stick shooter hacking mechanic, which is kind of different, which I'd not seen before, which is pretty cool, and I think I show it off in the video, so have a little look at that. But yeah, Dex, kind of, you know, typical indie game. Kind of came out of nowhere, nobody's talking about it, nobody's covering it, but it's cool, it's different. I mean, if you're looking for something prior to the new Deus Ex coming out, you fancy some cyberpunk, you fancy a cheaper option than Deus Ex will be, give it a go. I really like Dex. Did either of you guys heard about Dex before?
Well, you'd mentioned that you were reviewing it to me on Facebook, I think, so I did look it up, and man, it looks cool as hell. Like, it looks
very
right
cool.
on the street.
You play this badass blue-haired chick. She's cool. That's Dex. That's her name. So that makes sense why it's called Dex, doesn't it? Really. Plus you're dealing with like sentient AI, evil corporations, future tech. You constantly find hardcore pornography on the street, though. But that's what the world has come to. Turns out.
It's kind of like Flashback. Is it that sort of vibe?
Well, that's what I thought. When I saw it, I thought, you know, platformy action game. But no, it's actually a big world, like an open. Not exactly. It's hard to call it an open world because it's 2D, but it kind of is an open world at the same time. There's lots of buildings which you can go into, with rooms within the buildings and places you can explore and things you can find. And you know, you're dealing with different combat. You can play it stealthy. You can play it straight up action. You can spec in very specific ways, like lock picking or crafting and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot more there than it looks like there will be when you first look at it, when you first see the screenshot. So no, it's not really like Flashback. It's more like Deus Ex, which is it's kind of what it is. It's kind of like a 2D Deus Ex. You know, you're augmenting yourself, you're upgrading yourself, you're getting these cool abilities as you go further into the game and stuff. As well as there being quite a lot of varied combat, being melee combat, range combat. Your cyber hacking abilities will play into combat scenarios as well. So yeah, it's a surprising game. You'd think more people would be talking about it, but seemingly not.
Maybe more like those Assassin's Creed platformers then. Sounds quite a lot like that.
But yeah, sort of. But at the same time, those don't really have any RPG elements, do they? So this is actually quite a deep RPG experience. So
yeah, well, there's sort
spend a lot of time on
it. There's little bits that you can upgrade, but nothing significant, I suppose.
I then played Brutal, or Brutaatl. Brutaatl? I mean, how do you pronounce that? I'm going to go with Brutal. It's a stupid title for what is quite a fun game. It's a 3D action hack and slash roguelike. But what sets it apart from what is becoming a genre filled to the brim of titles, roguelikes at the moment, is its art style. It's this ASCII-inspired art, which will immediately take you back when you see it. Obviously Adam knows what I'm talking about. Richard, do you have an idea of what I mean by an ASCII style art? Yeah, you do. I thought you must, but I couldn't be sure. But basically, the sad thing is with this is that the ASCII stuff would be very easily interchangeable with anything. It doesn't really add anything to the experience other than a twang of nostalgia for people of our age. And you look at that and go, oh, ASCII's, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, back in my day when all we had was symbols. Not real graphics.
For anyone that doesn't know, it's basically when the image is made up of text characters.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way of describing it, you see. Thank you for doing that, because I really couldn't think of a good way of describing what ASCII looks like.
To be more specific, this is a deliberate kind of knowing, nerdy reference to an old game called Rogue, which represented a dungeon via ASCII characters, where the capital A was a fucking aardvark, and the capital O was an orc, and the lowercase o was a lesser orc, and you know.
Yes, but it's not at the same time. It's not that game. I believe you, like I was saying, you could just, well, like ASCII represented real life.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of like ASCII could be anything else as well at the same time. It doesn't add anything to the experience. It is what it is. It is a fairly enjoyable, simple to play hack and slash roguelike game. It's actually not very hard as roguelike games go. Actually, I found myself getting quite far almost immediately into the dungeon. There's like 20 odd levels of the dungeon, and you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And you know, things do get harder, but I found myself, maybe I just had easy runs, maybe I had easy loot drops, I don't know, but I found myself getting stuff that upgraded my character substantially. And I actually found the biggest threat in these dungeons was missing a jump, because you had instant permadeath if you just missed a platform. I found that far more challenging than the enemies were, or the toxic environments could be, or anything like that. And actually that's kind of frustrating if you think about it, because it turns out the jumping mechanics, the platform mechanics weren't that great, weren't that polished. So I'd be like doing really well, like 12, 15 levels down, I'd jump from platform to platform, I miss time, I fall, I die, that's it, it's over. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks.
It's a brave development team who include platforming mechanics in a permadeath roguelike. I will say that much.
Yeah.
Possibly a foolhardy team.
Yeah, especially as they're not. Well, you know, whenever you shoehorn platforming into a game that isn't a platformer, it's very easy for those mechanics not to be polished enough, not to be precise enough, and that's the problem. Yeah, we're having here, which is a real shame, because basically I like the art style. I find it very enjoyable to look at the screen while I'm doing these very generic things. So you know, once the nostalgia passed, it worked as a nice visual. It just wasn't particularly engaging. But it does segue me into a game with an art style that was very engaging, which was Hyper Light Drifter, another roguelike type experience. Do you guys know much about Hyper Light Drifter?
I watched your video. It looks very pretty.
It's gorgeous, mate. It's such a gorgeous game. It's got this amazing art style, this 2D pixel art. It's so beautiful that I took screenshots of it and actually have it as my background on my Xbox. It's just like absolutely stunning vistas. It's also got an amazing, not just an amazing look to it, but a cohesive style that penetrates right through from the art to the design and to the mechanics as well. And by that I mean that they've chosen this very interesting thing, the Heart Machine, the developers behind this, where there's no dialogue in this game, and there's also no written text, at least not in English. So everything is conveyed through hieroglyphs and pictograms and just the environment, which can be tricky at times. Don't get me wrong. It took some time for me to understand how the currency worked, how shops and vendors worked in the game, how you basically would meet an NPC in this game, and they give you 3 sequential pictures that tell you something about them, something about how they got there, something about what they want you to do, something, you know, it could be anything. And I'd often spend time like really looking at these pictures repeatedly until I got a gist of what they were trying to tell me. And what that does is it pulls you into the universe. It means, in almost a Fez-like way, you're being brought in through this sort of obfuscated storytelling technique. And the more you focus on it, the more you force yourself to understand it, of course, the deeper you find yourself being immersed in the experience. On top of that, you know, the basic movement, which is, you know, basic left like movement around, but also a dash mechanic, and then there's like a sword attack, and then there's range attacks, and everything feels very tight, very well play tested. It's punishingly hard at times, don't get me wrong, and it doesn't mollycoddle you. You can quite easily go in the wrong direction, end up in the wrong place, facing enemies way too powerful for you, and you are going to get destroyed. You're just going to get annihilated. And then, you know, back to the beginning, back to the start, back to your last save point. Unlike Brutal, which is just game over if you fuck up in a run, Hyper Light Drifter does have checkpointing, it does have saves, but it is a very hard game, and I think they've had to make concessions for that. It's, you know, it's got this beautiful art, love the neon pastel color palette, love the brave choices when it comes to the storytelling, and I just like I do like a game that can be really tricky and hard, but rewards you for perseverance. You know, much like a Dark Souls in your case, Richard. I know you're a massive fan of that genre. That doesn't give everything to you up front, does it? It makes things more complex than perhaps they have to be to draw you into the world. And it uses a very similar mechanic to that. Though I found this more accessible than Dark Souls because I suck at Dark Souls. But I did find myself getting further with this and really getting into it. And I like the fact that the story's open to interpretation. You know, that it isn't all obviously laid out for you. It's a really cool game. Any questions? Any questions?
What's the basically what's the backstory or what's the setting to this game? Because the one thing that's always struck me is that the logo and the name strongly lean you towards one sort of game, and then actually when you see it in action, it looks more of a kind of medieval fantasy setting.
What is the backstory to this game?
Which was not what I was expecting.
I'd say it's post-societal, post-apocalyptic, perhaps. But like I said, because nothing is spelled out, because it's pictograms, there's like it's more. I'd say it's more sci-fi than fantasy, definitely. It's definitely there are like alien-y type creatures, but I mean they could be fantastical. But it's fantastical science fiction. It feels like a world gone wrong. It feels like it doesn't necessarily not necessarily Earth, but it feels like I said, post-societal. Something has collapsed. The world is broken in ways. There are these deity-type demonic creatures and entities. I don't want to give too much away about the end stuff, but your character seems to be caught in some kind of death loop. You know, you're definitely suffering through the experience. It's heavy. I mean, the story is quite bleak. It's definitely not a game that's like, oh, joy, fun, ha ha ha, happy times. It's got a quite serious tone. It has an amazing intro, by the way, that I don't want to spoil. It's got this incredible, again, another game with amazing soundtrack, amazing audioscape. Not just the music, but you know, the environmental sounds, the way it's so hard to describe, but just the audioscape, the feeling, the texture that it gives the game and the experience is absolutely fantastic as well. Yeah, but it's that art. You either look at that and get blown away by how it looks and how it moves as well, how your character moves around, how you deal with enemies, how it's one of those ones where you could be in a fight and you're feeling like, oh, this is confident. I know what I'm dealing with. These enemies, I've seen these before. I know how to take them out. Then all of a sudden, a new dude appears and you've not seen him before, and he just owns you. Because he's got a different set of moves, he's got a different types of mechanics that you haven't experienced, and that's it. You're dead, and but you learn like a Dark Souls. You're learning and you're developing your character as you go through. Was that Richard?
Sounds good.
It's very good.
Much like Dark Souls. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Ah, okay, good. Yes, it is. Very good game. Very good. Don't know why I'm doing it in a stupid accent, but I really enjoyed Hyper Light Drifter. I really enjoy Hyper Light Drifter. It's a really cool experience, and it's I don't know, it's dripping in style. I love these indie games that have got a strong vision and that they and ambitious, and they just go for it. It's so cool. So cool. Any more questions, or should we move on to the big topic of the day?
I think I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready for the big topic.
Have you girded your loins, young man? How about you, Richard? Are you prepared?
Ready.
Ready. It's like gladiators. Contenders, ready! What are we doing? No Man's Sky. Oh, that was it. Yeah. The reason the sky's the limit is the name of the episode. This is the game everybody's talking about the last couple of weeks before its release, and now definitely post-release. It's huge. It is a survival exploration experience. We now know what No Man's Sky is, though. Let's be honest. We kind of knew that if you've been paying attention already anyway. But it's out. We've all played it. I've put in I probably played the most out of the three of us. I've played about 15 hours, I think, possibly at this point. I went pretty hardcore on launch day, and I've been playing it pretty much all my free time as me going into this game. I have jumped to a lot of star systems. I've been on lots of planets. I've got a new ship. I've done lots of crafting and exploring, and I've collected lots of things. That seems to be the game. Richard?
I'm not sure if I like it or not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. This is what I didn't want to sort of say that straight away. I've played it a lot. I keep wanting to play it, but when I actually think about, do I like what I'm doing in this game? I don't think I do.
I've played it all day. I've played it pretty much all day, apart
You
from
didn't
an hour
pee,
of
did
Rocket
you?
League.
You said you
No,
didn't even pee.
I held it in until you told me, Richard, do the show notes. And I was like, mate, I'm not even getting up for a piss, let alone doing your notes.
This is such a weird game. I'm really glad.
It's really grabbed me, and all the time I'm thinking, well, that doesn't work. Why isn't that better? But it's not letting me go. I still want to just get to the next space station and just save my game, because that's a good place to stop. And then once I'm there, I think, well, that planet's only 30 seconds away. I might as well have a look. And once you're there, then it's just, oh, what's over that hill? Maybe there's another station there I can just have a peek at. And it's just never ending.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing. It's like, we didn't receive code for this. We've all bought our copies of this game, and I'm really glad about that. And that means if I do want to do a review for this, I can do it in a week's time, you know, whatever, in 2 weeks' time, whenever I feel like it, instead of feeling pressured to get something written, because this game is so strange if you look at it critically. I don't know. Like I said, like if you look at the mechanics that are there and what's actually in the game, it feels lacking. It feels like it's not polished. It feels like the flying isn't quite there. The ground combat, when you're fighting sentinels or creatures, definitely isn't there. As a first-person shooter, it feels like shit. Even with an upgraded multi-tool, which I've got. Even I'm in a brand new ship that cost me 1.8 million units. That took me some saving, that did. But like, you know, it still feels like kind of crap when you're flying around. It's okay, but it's not like elite good. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel polished like that. I mean, I can't stop playing it.
That's one of the most interesting things about this game, is the comparisons with Elite. Because having played both, my fear coming into this was that it would be similarly heavy and I'd be put off. Because however good Elite was, I simply don't have the time to invest. And you really need to sit down. You know, I've sat down with No Man's Sky all day, but I didn't have to. You can kind of dip in and out. With Elite, you can't really do that. You've got to commit to a big extended session every time you play it. And that's one of the things that worried me about No Man's Sky, that it would be similar. But just in terms of the systems, my fears weren't upheld. It's very, very simple to play. It's very accessible. Despite the scale and the scope of it, you can just jump right in and you kind of know what you're doing. It tells you what you need to do in very simple terms. It's very easy to play. And although the handling, like you say, is not great, actually, in a sense, that is a strength, because I didn't sit there for half an hour like I did with Elite, trying to figure out how to move forward. And I'm not exaggerating. I was stuck with Elite for a long time trying to figure out what the button combinations were. And with this, it's just dead simple. I mean, there is a trade-off with how effective that control is, but at least you know what you're doing, and it's easy enough to do what you need to do.
Adam, you've been quiet so far. Adam's the only one out of the three of us to have this on PC. As we alluded to earlier, it had some issues, shall we say.
It did have some
issues.
First
hour or so at launch. But, I mean, do you want to talk about technical problems on PC first? How do you want to approach this?
Well, so just to put my opinion into the pot as well, I said to you on Facebook, this game's like meth, and I think that's probably a pretty reasonable description of how I feel about it. I'm not sure I like it. I'm not sure it's good for me. But it's taken over my life since I managed to get it to run, and I can't stop. On PC, I downloaded it, got it off Steam, you know, bought it. It was expensive, you've got to say. It's not a cheap indie game. And then for the first hour, it wouldn't run. I had to go through update all drivers, do all the PC gamer stuff. That is the reason I stopped playing games on PC when I did first time around, when I went for the Xbox. Because I just hate all that. I hate having to keep up with my software. It's just irritating. Things should just work. But once I finally got it running, it ran like an absolute dog. It was nearly unplayable. Turned all the settings right down, stripped everything back, and now it runs fine. Like, it runs great. It doesn't run as great as the PS4 version. Like, if I watch a stream of someone playing on the PS4, it is much smoother and nicer. There are some really odd control decisions that have been made. In terms of, like, there's a very lengthy delay before you take off the spaceship, which was suggested that like that's to feel like your reactors are coming online and your ship's powering up, but
I think
it doesn't feel like that.
There's a more practical explanation for that.
But yes, I would think so too.
Your thruster fuel runs out very quickly. If you take off 4 times, then your thruster fuel's gone. So an instant launch button just wouldn't be practical. It has to have that couple of seconds delay to make sure. Are you absolutely sure you want to take off? Because this might be your last chance before you need to land again.
Well, but in fairness, we are in a universe built out of spaceship fuel. I mean, everywhere you go.
Yeah.
It's inconceivable that anyone will ever get stranded anywhere, really, unless by the pre-order glitch.
Let's talk about a little bit about the core loop of the game, which is at its heart, it's meant to be a survival game, isn't it?
I don't know.
Because at first that's what you think, and then you realise maybe not, because this is balls easy if it is.
Yeah.
Like there's no real challenge in this game anywhere. It's so odd because most games are built around some form of adversity. You're fighting something. You're up against someone. You're dealing with something else. Whereas in this game, it's almost purely explorational, isn't it? I mean, once you get the hang of it after those first couple of hours, you really aren't ever struggling for survival because you understand what basic fuels you need to make sure your suit will be okay, to make sure your ship can fly. And once you've got the hang of that, you're kind of sorted. I've been playing, like I said, for 15 hours, and maybe when I get more and more into the center of the universe, I'm going to come across against much more hostile things. You know, I've been to systems where I was getting attacked by pirates, for example, straight away. But even in the starter ship, I was able to deal with them. You know, they only come at you in 2s and 3s, and that's not that difficult. I mean, maybe when I get further into the middle, there'll be much bigger fleets that I have to deal with that will attack me. But I certainly haven't experienced that yet. So is this game? The way I describe it, the way I've been telling people about it, it's the ultimate podcast game. Excuse me. Like I can just put a podcast on and just chill out. I mean, because there's no real story. You can just poodle about, do a few things for a couple of hours, and stop. You know, it's like, oh, that's cool. I've been listening to loads of podcasts when playing it. I've caught up on lots of stuff. It's been great. Been really helpful. I could have gone back and listened to all the previous episodes of BXB's Bits and Bobs, of which are available on iTunes right now. But I didn't do that. So I, just saying though, in case you wanted to, the ultimate No Man's Sky companion. So is this game just about exploring? Is that all this is? It is about maybe getting to the center of the galaxy. Have you guys heard what happens when you get to the center of the galaxy?
No.
Okay, I don't. Well, I can't say.
If you tell me, I'll kill you.
No, I can't say. But it's not an end.
Is there a box with Peter Molyneux in it?
No, but if you do the Atlas path and follow that and do that and get to the end, there's not an end. It's a perpetual thing.
Yeah.
So there isn't really an end goal here. It is just to exist, literally just to fly to a place, to look at a place, to mine some shit, to sell some shit, and then do it again.
So this is sort of interesting because I think there's lots, and it's really hard to talk about No Man's Sky because it's such a kind of, it's a mile wide and about an inch deep, I suspect, in all places. And so I think everyone kind of brings their own stuff to the table. A lot of the backlash that's come about around it seems to be because it's not the game people thought it was going to be, but the game people thought it was going to be was elite, but with Spore and proper full laws of evolution employed within. Like, it was an insane project that people were expecting, and so it's difficult to kind of engage with the finished product because it's surrounded in all this kind of nonsense that was built up around it, and people reading ridiculous complexity into very simple answers in interviews that were simply like, yes, we have a system that roughly does a food chain, and people started to imagine there was going to be ecological niches and, you know, elaborate predator-prey relationships, and no, what the dude meant was the herbivores move to plants and play and eat animation, and the carnivores move to the herbivores and play and eat animation, and then the herbivore falls over because it's dead. Like, that's enough to say you have a food chain in your game, but that's not what people heard when he said there were food chains on these planets.
Right, okay, let's talk a bit more about variety then, if we're going to go down that road. At first, I still don't think I like the look of the game, I think in places it's quite ugly, like just in general. Planets will often follow the same rules of sort of sporadic vegetation with sporadic mountains, and sort of everything looks a bit the same due to at least at the moment for me. But I have started to see maybe a little bit more variety as I dig deeper into the galaxy, which I know is what they've talked about. That I've started to come across, for example, early on, I never really saw any water, but I have now just landed on my first mostly aquatic world, which is quite special, I have to say, because there's a whole diving mechanic and then the undersea life. So if you guys haven't experienced that, I definitely recommend trying to find a water world as soon as possible. It's pretty cool. But now I'm starting to see lots of some really freaky creatures. I mean, some of the shit you get to see in this game will give you fucking nightmares, like seriously nightmares. I saw like this 20-foot tall raptor creature, which only ate oxide. So I was like, well, I'm alright then, that's good. But that thing scared the crap out of me. So that it's so weird, isn't it? This game. I mean, like the whole spore thing, like you said, it really does feel like the creatures that you meet are these horrific Frankenstein, randomly generated monstrosities. But sometimes they really work, and sometimes they really don't.
Yeah, I'd say exactly that. I think it's worth mentioning that sometimes, every now and again, what comes over the hill to greet you is amazing, and the procedural generation has absolutely nailed it. By random chance or whatever, it's landed on something truly unique and fascinating and awesome. And then there's the other times when, like, a kid's game of heads, bodies, and legs has come over the horizon, and it's like, oh, I see, spider legs, giraffe head, and it's got a crab body. Fine. And it looks kind of naff.
The amount of times I've seen what seem to be walking plants is quite surprising as well. Have you seen a lot of walking plants? I keep finding these weird, like, I've seen creatures that look like cactuses more than once bouncing around the landscape.
Yeah.
That's a strange one. I don't know why I keep getting it.
The third planet I went to, I was so glad I discovered it and not Richard, because it was populated almost entirely by large purple hopping lumps with a significant resemblance to a certain McDonald's mascot.
Of course you discovered it.
Of course I discovered Planet of the Grimaces, and I really did. There they were. Planet of the Grimaces hopping around everywhere. It was awesome.
I came across Pyramid Head from Silent Hill on one of my planets.
I had a Pyramid Head goat thing chasing me around for a while.
This one looked like this was more like quite a large creature, like a dinosaur size, but had a giant pyramid head instead. That was quite scary, I have to say, when I saw that. But again, it would be like herbivore though. I'm like, really? That's one thing I find just like confusing sometimes, is that you've come across a lot of herbivores which look like predators. Like when you first see them and you're just like, oh my god, that thing's going to chew my face off, and then it's like, no, I only eat carbon. Like, why?
Well,
doesn't make sense.
You're made of carbon, right? That would be bad.
No, but I think it more likely means the stupid isotopes that are everywhere, like you're talking about. I'm starting to get more into the minutiae of needing weirder resources for crafting now. The further you get into the game, so it's like I'm starting to need shit like I've never even seen before on Planet. So I'm guessing there's going to be something different, I guess. But it starts off with
down
iron
to blueprints, isn't it? So it's not stuff that you can find, but you'll get blueprints from maybe ruins or from life forms.
Do you want to talk about blueprints? Because there's that quite interesting bug there, isn't there, Richard? To do with blueprints. Yeah. So people
I've dodged it. I've dodged it.
People, and so did I.
I thought I had it. I thought I was in big trouble about 4 hours ago, and I resolved it in the most desperate Hail Mary, thank Christ way imaginable.
So basically, was yours to do with the pre-order thing as well, Adam?
Well, so we should probably talk about what the glitch is, and then I'll tell you more.
So the pre-order glitch was you get a new ship, which you can activate right at the beginning of the game, and the problem with that is it gives you a ship with a hyperdrive. Now the ship you start the game with doesn't have a hyperdrive, so if you activate this pre-order bonus and get the new ship, you skip the tutorial quest line for the hyperdrive, and more importantly, for the fuel. I find for the hyperdrive, that would be even more integral to this. And what that has meant for some players is, later on in the game, they've gone and bought themselves a new ship, and it didn't have a hyperdrive. And because they've done that, and they don't know how to build a hyperdrive, or the fuel for a hyperdrive, they're fucked. Or you can buy a ship with a hyperdrive, but you don't know how to craft the fuel, so you're fucked. So you can be fucked in two ways, which is great. I on the other hand found the recipe for the fuel just randomly in an early system, so I was fine. But I've never found any blueprints to actually make hyperdrives. But all the ships I've found and bought, I bought a ship, came with a hyperdrive, so I was okay.
So it's
How
interesting.
did you dodge it?
I did jump. Before I heard about the bug, I used the hyperdrive. You only get 1 jump's worth of fuel in the drive, so you can't even go back to where you started. No. Luckily, it didn't skip the quests. I got that quest in the new system that I jumped to. So it was quite simple for me. I got the warp drive blueprints, and then I got the blueprints for the fuel not long afterwards in the same system.
Okay, because I didn't get any of that. I was just lucky. I suppose. What about you, Adam? How did you get your fuck up?
So what happened to me is I knew about the glitch. So I've got the pre-order bonus ship because I pre-ordered an hour before the game came out. Because Steam. But fine, I get the pre-order bonus ship and it looks nicer. So I was like, sure, I'll use this ship, but I'll be careful. I ain't touching this hyperdrive until this game has taught me how to build a hyperdrive, and I'm not going to use fuel until the game has taught me how to make hyperdrive fuel, and then I'll be fine, right? And turns out the glitch is actually a lot nastier than I thought, because on the first area you can learn how to build the hyperdrive, and then the game just starts saying, oh, you've got a hyperdrive and it's got fuel, so don't worry about learning how to make fuel.
Yeah.
Just jump. Why aren't you jumping? Jump now. Start jumping. What's the matter with you? Like, it just nags you to death to hyperspace out of there. Now, I'm playing this game differently to most people, I suspect, in that I could not give a shit about going to Galactic Center. Fuck that. I am space biologist. I am going to every planet and I'm finding every animal.
Oh my god.
I have got 15 hours of gameplay on this game. I have been to 6 planets. Right? But I know those planets so well. And my chart, I discovered, I don't know if this is on the PS4 version, but it is on the PC version because Master Race. We have the option to find the nearest discovered system. So I did that at the very start. And so I'm not following a yellow path, I'm following a blue path to a system discovered by another player.
Ooh.
Now, it's 8 jumps away to get there, but I'm going to get there and I'm going to see what he's named all the animals, and I'm going to judge him. I'm going to judge him so hard, because my animal names are so fucking good. Oh, I am doing this seriously. On the first planet, I named all the fungus, I named all the plants, I named everything.
Jesus.
And I didn't name them Dat Boy, Lols, or Meme. I named them logical things. Fantail fungus, that's a name.
Well, Adam, I would say that sounds like the most boring thing in the world, but whatever makes you happy, mate.
No, it's
Whatever
making me so happy. This is what I wanted the game to be. My criticisms of the game are, why are there guns in it? Why are there aliens in it? Why is there trading in it? Why is any of that in it? I want to fly to planets and see aliens. Cool animal aliens.
I will admit, I'm not naming aliens, but I am naming planets. And do you know how I make my planets sound legit? Do you know what I came across? The concept? I basically name them a descriptor of the planet, so acidy, for example,
right.
And then I just add planitia after it.
That's good. Well done. Yeah.
Acidy planitia. See what I did? So a little bit of like Latinness.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. See. So it actually sounds kind of legit, but they're not. It's really
she was
lazy.
one of the women in the Cosby Show, wasn't she?
What about you? How's your naming technique, Richard?
Fuck that, I'm bothered. Just left it as it is.
Not bothered. I'm shocked. Has anybody done the money glitch?
No.
Or the how to duplicate items glitch?
No, I'd never do that. Have you done that?
You're too pure. I might have done it a little bit, yes.
Do you know how much money you get if you find every animal on a planet? I'm rich.
I've seen. You make a shit ton for doing that, yeah. But I spent like 4 hours on one planet, and I was still like short 2 animals. I was like, I'm going to do this planet. I thought...
I did one,
Yeah,
and the last 2 animals that I couldn't find were airborne. And you have to keep them down with that mining tool. Christ, that took a while.
You can't.
What was I going to say? What was I doing? Basically, I went to one of the beacons, the orange beacons, which you can search for things. I had loads of iron and stuff, so I was crafting all the data chips. I thought there'd be like a finite amount of monoliths and stuff like that. No, there isn't. So just every time you say find me a monolith, it just gives you another monolith or another stone. So it's like infinite outposts, monoliths. Every time I don't know how it's working. Oh, wait, if it's not infinite, it's a lot because I must have put it in. I must have done each one of those like 15 or 20 times on this one beacon.
I put
and it
one
just
in.
kept giving them to me.
I put one in and it sent me to somewhere I'd been already.
That's nice.
Really? That's fun. Interesting.
I mean, I think the issue is that the planets are massive. I mean, they're not quite the size of a planet, but they're actually kind of close. Like
have you had the issue of like you've got a waypoint on this side of the planet, and if you try to fly to it in the atmosphere, it doesn't actually seem to reduce the time.
Yeah.
Have you had that? So what you have to do is go into like suborbit or orbit, do the warp thing across, and then come down, which is quite weird and frustrating. I found that a bit irritating. The way you're playing it though, trying to find every animal, I think that's crazy. I mean, it's like I go to a planet. My usual thing is I'll go to a planet, I'll piddle about for a bit, I'll go to a few outposts, I'll see what's in my scanning area, and then I'll just head back to orbit, sell some stuff at the space station, and fuck off, basically.
To be fair, I think it helps that all the planets I've been to so far, every one of them has been incredibly good. Like I've watched enough like PS4 streams to know that I've actually had quite a lucky run. All my planets have been really cool. They've had water and they've had insects and like interesting creatures. You know, I haven't gone to the rocky planet of the shitty dogs.
Right. I've had a lot of acid.
Most people seem to be on.
I've had a lot of acid planets, which aren't very pleasant.
Yeah.
They're literally just full of plants belching out farts, and just like really ugly shit. I've only been to like one planet with any water on it, but it was like mostly water, so that was really cool. And I had an upgrade for my suit at that point, so I could stay underwater longer. So I was just like, this is cool, some cool shit here.
Oh, so I never finished my story about my glitchy experience. So having decided I was going to do all that, eventually, like the thing nags you into jumping, so I jump, and it says now go to the space station to buy more fuel. So I go to the space station. And I think I'm in there and I'm hauling like a ton of gold from my first system. So I go into the space station, talk to the alien, sell all my gold, and I just forget to buy the antimatter. Like it just slips my mind, and I leave, fly off to a planet, start cataloguing as I do, and then realise, it still says go to a space station. Oh shit, I was supposed to buy the antimatter. I bet that's what I was supposed to do. Go back into space, no space station marker. Literally none. Oh, don't know where the space station is. I'm quite a long way away from it now. So I spent an hour today flying round into kind of close-ish to all the other planets, desperately hoping I would see the space station to fly into it so that I could buy antimatter and restart the thing. Because you can't because nothing was happening. It was constantly nagging me, go to the space station to buy antimatter. But I couldn't. It wasn't telling me where the space station was.
The way I found to find the space station is you look at the trade lanes.
That's what I did in the end.
Yeah.
And just bit of a Hail Mary play.
You see a bunch of them all going to one place. You know that's where the space station is.
Because I was also in one of these weird systems where you had like a whole cluster of planets down at one end, and then there's just like one back of fucking beyond planet that's like 2 minutes flight from everywhere else with pulse drive. So I was all the way over there by the time I realised I was in this trouble.
Right.
So man, it was not fun, but I did find it, and I did get into the space station, and thankfully I have survived, and I'm okay again now.
I think that's the thing about this game as well. It's just rough around the edges, isn't it? It's got like
it's extremely rough.
And there's like you said, like I keep getting told I need to refuel a gun on my spaceship, but it won't let me refuel it. But it works without any fuel. It actually says 0%, and it still fires, but it will not let me refuel it, though it keeps telling me to fucking refuel it. And I'm like, well, I can't. It won't let me do it. So
there's two guns on most ships, though, so it might be the other one.
No.
It doesn't mean the beam versus the...
It's the pulse one.
You're right for your money glitch. I bet that's what did it. I heard a funny glitch today. A friend of mine was playing. I was chatting to him while we were both playing it, and he landed his ship. You know, there's those hovering islands sometimes. like in what's it called, that film, Avatar, and he accidentally landed his ship in that, and then he got out.
Did he fall?
Yeah, he fell, and
Did he
he
die?
survived the fall. No, but he couldn't get back.
No. I've had that where I've landed on things that are really high up, yeah, and you get out and you fall and you're like, ow, and you're like, oh well, thanks for that. I landed on I've got a screenshot of it actually. I landed on like a massive iron deposit earlier, and then I mined all the iron.
Yeah.
So my ship's just sort of hovering in the air by itself. It doesn't. I don't know. It's that weird Minecraft thing, isn't it? Where it's like it doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's really strange. I took a screenshot of it.
Because he couldn't reach the ship, he could reach it just enough to repair it. Because I think he was on one of these really hostile planets with loads of these sentinels around, hammering the shit out of him constantly.
That's fun.
So, because he'd landed it in this funny place, and it had sort of glitched into the scenery as well and damaged the ship, he was having to try and repair it, but he couldn't get into it. So he had to walk for, I don't know, maybe an hour to try and find one of these stations, because you get these stations, don't you, where you can summon your ship, you can call it in. But he was just desperately hunting for one of those to get to his ship, because it was just there above his head, out of reach.
That's a brilliant way of fucking yourself up. That's amazing. Not being attacked by sentinels the whole way. Great.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
I had to hunt for one of those stations, but it was because I turned around after a lengthy period of off exploring. Turned around to my ship marker and it said like 30 minutes walk. And I was just like, no. I'm not walking for 30 minutes. Do you both know the speed boost kind of?
Yes.
Well, let's say glitch. Like, if you don't know that, learn it, because it's the only thing that's going to make this game playable.
You mean the one with the melee and the jetpack?
Yeah, melee jetpack. That move saves time.
I've upgraded my mobility quite a lot now, though. So yeah, I move. I can sprint for a long time.
It's the strangest thing, right? I mean, I said I don't know if I like the game. I think I like the game quite a lot. But it is that thing of, if I'm going to talk to people about it, all I want to talk about is all the things about it that annoy me.
Yeah, no,
which is an enormous list. Somehow there's magic in there that lets it be good despite that. But
there is a secret sauce in there somewhere, isn't there? I mean, that's it. It's like what we're just trying to look at it critically. It's got a lot of problems, but at the same time, I'm talking about it now. I want to go and play it. I want to be playing it right now.
I mean, from like a game design point of view, there isn't a good mechanic in the game. Every single thing the game does, it does badly. There's no way it should be even passable, and actually I think it isn't.
Have you had many crashes, Richard?
I haven't had any yet.
Oh, haven't you? I've had dozens. Loads. They seem to mostly happen on loads. So when you're coming into the game fresh, it just error codes me and kicks me back to the dashboard, or whatever they call it on PlayStation. I've had quite a few, yeah. One of the cool things, I don't know if you guys have died at all in the game, but one of the cool things is when you die, it gives you quotes from science fiction novels.
Yeah.
And it's too quick, though, to read them. I find it really annoying. They give you the quotes, and it's just like, before I have a chance to read it, it's gone. I'm like, you fucking arse. Leave them up longer. Weirdly, I want the load screen to be on the screen longer. I don't think I've ever said that before. So, but I really do. I really like reading them, because I've read that. That's a cool bit. Oh, I've read that one as well.
Like, I was surprised to see how much of this game has this kind of 60s sci-fi book vibe. Like, it's really in that style of sci-fi. And I think the art style makes a lot more sense in terms of basically every planet I've been to looks like the cover of a fairly cheap sci-fi novel from a second-hand bookshop. Like, well, that's clearly what they've gone for.
I don't know if you know much about Hello Games and Shomo, but yeah, he's talked about this in interviews, that was always his inspiration. And interestingly, when they were first developing the game, they had a secret team working on it in Hello Games, and they actually boarded off part of their office and then covered up all the windows. They went out and bought all the cheap sci-fi books they could find, ripped off the covers, and used them to board up all of their windows. So it's always been a big inspiration for them. Exactly what you just talked about. So, yeah. Oh no, I love that, and I think that's one of the charming things about it. The art style. I mean, the design of things like the space station and the ships. I love the looks of the ships. Where they've actually designed something, it looks fabulous. But the problem I have sometimes is with the planets, they can look very generic when you actually looking around on them and stuff. Yeah.
The ships are procedural.
Are they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's not more of a design element going into them in any way.
Well, the bits they're made of
they're not organic, so they're easier to slot together, I guess. But yeah, it's all procedural.
I mean, they're made of Lego. Like they've got a selection of noses, a selection of wings, a selection of cockpits, and it's picking them. It's building them.
There's less parts, as it were. So it comes. Maybe that means they come out looking a bit more designed.
I think it's just.
I really like how they look.
I think Rich is right. I think because they're man-made objects, procedurally generating them makes a lot more sense because it makes sense that spaceships in this universe would be modular. So the fact that they look modular is fine. Whereas when the creatures look modular, it looks a bit less good.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I think the ships have. Sometimes I'll be in a space station and I'll just stand there and watch them coming in and going out. I'm just like,
they're really cool.
The cool ones that come in and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I want that one. Oh, that one's got 35 slots. It costs 10 million units. I know what I'm saving up for.
So the problem I've got right now is that I bought a spaceship purely on its look because it's the best looking spaceship you can get. It's just incredible. It looks like an X-wing. It's so good. And I'm never upgrading again. Like, there's no way I'm flying some piece of shit.
I'm basically
can't get this spaceship now, and it's like a 13 slot piece of crap. But no.
I'm basically flying around in a freighter. My freighter is not very sexy looking, I have to say, right now.
So there's a weird thing. So I've been watching a lot of the streams, and you get the chat alongside the stream, which is always fun. But a lot of the people around, first of all, the conversation is always about have you met another player yet, which is sort of hilarious because
it's always no.
It's not an MMO. Never was going to be. Shut up. Right. But the other thing everyone says is when are they adding base building? Everyone wants base building. Now, to me, it feels like base building is the exact opposite of everything this game wants to be.
Well, of course
this game is 100% not about putting down roots. It's about disposable content and nomadic lifestyles, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's about exploring, pushing forward, always.
And relentless forward momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's set out from the beginning. You either choose to follow the Atlas to the center of the universe, or go on the free roam mode and just go literally anywhere else. It's not about staying where you are. Just go somewhere. Yeah,
it's weird. Strange.
It just seems odd that that's something so many players fundamentally want, and you sort of think, I mean, what would you do? So you'd go to a planet and you'd build a base, and then you'd stand outside your base and go, "This is my base. Now I will fly away and never come back." Like, I just can't. I'm not even having to go at them for wanting it because they want it so strongly. Like, I don't know. Maybe it speaks to some deep human need
to have a home, to have a place you can call yours. I guess maybe I don't know. I like we haven't really talked about the alien races and the language stuff and all of that. I think that's really cool.
Actually, the language mechanic is good. I mean, it's pure grind and it's silly, but actually, I've never seen that in a game before, and it's a good idea. I like that a lot.
I like that as well. I think it's really cool.
It's slightly broken if you play the way I play, because by the time I left my first planet, you were saying you kept getting monoliths. I was pretty much fluent in Viking by the time I left my first planet. Like.
Yeah, because
it's so many knowledge stones. Just wondering.
You know how I'm doing it? I'm doing it so cheaply. There's a guy on the space station. If you give him 20 carbon, he'll offer you a choice of 3 things. Every third time you do it, he'll give you a new word. Or every second time you do it, he gives you a new word. Yeah. And on the other times, he gives you some carbon. So that's what I've been doing for 55 words.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's one way of gaming the system. But there's so much of that in there, isn't there? I mean, like we were talking about, are they exploits or are they just, Hello Games being like, alright, why not? We don't do it. It's not what this is about. I don't think, like we said, there's no real adversarial challenge in this game. It's not about that. It's not about struggling to do anything. It's just about existing. It's about, the reason it's not No Man's Sky is because it's yours. So it's like you can do whatever you want in this world, within the limits of the game. If you just literally want to do what Adam does and just stay on a planet and fanny about and, fanny about. Space biologist. I like it, Adam. It's good.
One day someone might find my system, and when they do, they're going to get there and go, "This dude did a good job. Like he worked hard on this shit."
Send you some feedback. It makes up for the this is the police review. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, no one will ever. That's the great irony. It's like, again, one of the things that interests me is that during the sort of first announcement period, the discussion was always, well, what will we do when we run out of planets to name? And Sean Murray had to reassure people, oh, there's so many bajillion million planets, it'll be fine. But actually, it's almost a shame. Like I found myself wishing that species would crop up on multiple planets, so that discovering them meant a little more. So there was more chance of people coming into contact with content that you'd come into contact with. Because at the moment, there is a sort of loneliness to the experience where a lot of it's kind of masturbatory and a lot of it's just like you're doing this for you, because no one's, especially in your first system, I mean, presumably you start a long way from Galactic Center and then you work your way towards it. So maybe around Galactic Center, as players congregate there will be a sort of more heavily discovered zones. But on the outskirts, no one's ever finding what you've done. So it sort of feels odd. Like there's a... I mean, maybe that's part of the idea of the game, is to inspire that feeling of loneliness. But I just found myself wishing that, I don't know, the game adhered to the idea of transpermia and said, like, oh yeah, occasionally alien species can crop up on multiple planets, and the person who makes that species gets to see it. Like, you know. I
think that for now, this brings us to the end of our discussion on No Man's Sky. I suspect we'll come back to it probably in another 2 weeks, as the games are still a bit light on the ground, as it were. So I imagine we'll still be putting some more time into this. It's kind of nice actually to have a little break from the hectic reviewing and stuff, and actually be able to play some games that we can all play. And I think this is definitely an interesting experience. And it's as we get further and get closer to that Galactic Center, it's going to be curious to see if things change, if these worlds change. And clearly, the purchase of this game was an expensive one for both of you guys, because neither of you can afford light bulbs.
Well, it's more that I didn't want to just get up from the computer and go and turn a light on. I mean, it was sunny when we started this shit, right?
It's no running water, no light bulbs, just a PlayStation and a PC to play No Man's Sky. That's all Adam and Richard can afford, and I respect that dedication here at BXB's Bits and Bobs. I think that's it shows real passion for the games. So thank you for that.
Okay.
So I'm going to draw us to the close here and just say, follow us at BXB Games on Twitter. We are BXB Games on Facebook. BXBGames.co.uk is the website. We have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Subscribe to this podcast. I am attempting to get this properly listed on iTunes, but iTunes, it turns out, no longer likes my audio hosting people. So I'm going to have to do some RSS fiddling around and stuff like that to make it work, which is a pain in my butt. Because iTunes is really picky about what it wants for you to have on the feed to make it host. So I fucking know. I'll work it out. But who cares about that really? Who uses iTunes to subscribe to podcasts now anyway? Does anybody still do that? I don't. But anyway, yeah. So that's coming for those that have been clamoring. No one. But yeah, by all means, leave some more comments on Adam's This Is the Police review. He loves all that feedback. So don't stop now. And you can also, of course, find us on Kotaku in Action. If you'd like to check us out on the hive of scum and villainy that is the Reddit's home of Gamergate, by all means, leave them some feedback about how many of them are arseholes and how they would deserve to die in a fire. That would be good as well. So yeah, you can find me on personal account at DIYE. By all means, send me some feedback about my comments as well. I will appreciate that. And those lovely comments you've been leaving on YouTube, if you're going to be using such horrible language, I will ban your ass. And that's the way it is. Because I don't need to leave that on the videos. If you want to have some legitimate feedback, by all means, but swearing at me won't get you very far. So yeah, Richard, where can you be found on Twitter?
Colonel Red.
Colonel Red.
I don't get any feedback of any kind. I wish I did.
Yes, add me and Richard play some Rainbow Six Siege, because we didn't talk about it, but that game is a good shooter. We've had some fun with that in the last couple of weeks, haven't we? So that's been good. Add us up on.
Excellent.
Friend us on Xbox. I'm Hall Ben on Xbox. By all means, add me so you can send me some more feedback. That'd be nice. Where can people find?
Rainbow Six, and we'll be on Rocket League as well.
Rocket League, yeah, fucking Rocket League's gonna be good. And Adam, If you don't want to give out your Twitter, I'd understand.
Well, I mean, normal people can find me on Twitter at AdamBreedingDev. Gamergaters can find me on Twitter at Mike Bithell.
Oh, poor Mike Bithell. Right.
He gets enough from him anyway. He's an SJW.
Oh, is he? Are you,
yes.
like you? You can smell them. You're all the same.
He thinks like women should have equal rights and shit. Like he's a terrible human being. He has to be told how much he needs to die on a regular basis for that. Clearly.
So on the next podcast, you guys can expect some talk potentially about the new F1 game, which is coming out in the next couple of weeks, and about the new Deus Ex game, which is also coming out in the next couple of weeks. So we're starting to hit silly season, coming to the end of August, September. The games are only going to get coming thicker and faster and stuff. So get your No Man's Sky time in now, because soon you'll be playing. I think in your case, Richard, I'm going to give you Madden. If I get Madden, I know you're a football fan, and Adam, well, I don't even know what's
Lego.
That last Lego game was all right. It was good. Star Wars, man. Star Wars
it's Lego Madden, though. That's what you're getting.
Lego Madden, yes, the ultimate combination. Synergy, the brand synergy you never knew you wanted. Finally.
Okay. So that's my niche. All the racist games to Adam, right?
Yes, please. I do like a bit of racism.
He loves it. And throwing some torture in there as well, and it's only going to be more fun for him. So
I could give you Beautiful Escape Dungeoneer. That's a game with a torture mechanic that's absolutely brilliant.
So that's episode 7 of BXB's Bits and Bobs. We'll be back with episode 8 in a couple of weeks. See you all then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.